Welcome to the deep dive. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Yeah, really glad to have you here.
So I want you to take a second and just think about what immediately pops into your head when you hear the word leadership.
Oh, that's a loaded word.
Right. I mean, if you're navigating the modern professional world, you probably picture, I don't know, a C-suite title on a glass door.
Yep, the corner office.
Exactly. You think of massive platforms, a prominent microphone, maybe a highly optimized LinkedIn profile.
Or just a really curated personal brand.
Yeah, we are constantly sold this assumption that leadership is something you finally acquire once you've amassed enough visibility.
Like it's a prize at the end of the ladder.
Right, once you have enough leverage. But what if that's entirely backward?
Which is such a wild thought.
It is. What if the most transformative, world-altering leadership actually happens completely out of the spotlight?
And that is the exact paradox we're exploring today. Honestly, it completely flips our conventional, modern understanding of influence right on its head.
It really does. So today, we're pulling from this fascinating, super in-depth manuscript. It's titled Early Leadership and Mentorship.
Great source material.
Incredible source material. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the quiet, often totally invisible origins of true leadership.
The stuff nobody sees.
Exactly. We're going to discover how you listening right now, whatever your current context is, how you can leverage the incredible power of mentorship to multiply your influence right now.
No matter where you are.
Right. No matter where you are in your journey, completely regardless of whether you have a fancy title or a corner office. Okay, let's unpack this.
So, to really grasp the concepts we're dealing with here, we have to establish the massive contrast between the standard secular view of leadership and what the text describes as the kingdom model.
The upside-down model.
Yeah, the upside-down model. Because in worldly terms, leadership is almost universally depicted as climbing a ladder. It's a zero-sum game.
You win, someone else loses.
Right. It's about hoarding authority, fighting for visibility, and basically maintaining absolute control over outcomes and people.
You consolidate power to prove to everyone else that you are, in fact, the leader.
Exactly. It's the classic corporate pyramid.
But the kingdom model presented in our source material is the exact opposite.
Totally opposite.
It's an upside-down pyramid. Instead of climbing to the top to be served, leadership is defined by downward mobility.
I love that phrase, downward mobility.
It's so countercultural. It's defined by stewardship, humility, sacrifice. The metric of success isn't how many people are serving your vision,
Right.
but how many people you are actively serving.
Precisely. And a foundational component of this upside-down model is the absolute necessity of hidden preparation.
Hidden preparation.
Yeah, there's a profound reality here. Influence precedes authority.
Always.
We all know the historical story of Moses, right?
Yeah.
But what's brilliant about this framework is how it analyzes his timeline.
The 40 years.
The 40 long years. He spent 4 decades as a shepherd in the Midianite wilderness before he ever stepped up to lead a nation.
Just think about the psychological crucible of that.
It's staggering.
He spends 40 years in Pharaoh's court learning to be a somebody.
Right.
And then 40 years in this desolate wilderness learning to be a nobody.
Literally talking to sheep.
Yeah. Those aren't just gap years. That was the prerequisite. The wilderness wasn't a waiting room. It was the classroom where his ego was just systematically dismantled.
Exactly. And you see the exact same pattern with David.
Oh, yeah. Out in the fields.
Tending sheep in lonely, isolated fields, fighting off predators in total obscurity long before he ever wore a crown.
Nobody was watching.
No one. These hidden spaces are exactly where the bedrock of character is forged. The patience, the profound humility, the total dependence required to lead effectively, they are cultivated in the dark.
When absolutely no one is applauding.
Right. You cannot lead publicly without collapsing if you haven't been formed privately.
Which brings up the ultimate historical example of servant leadership. Jesus. He completely and radically reframed the entire concept of authority.
He really did.
Because in the Greco-Roman world, power was all about domination.
Crush your enemies.
Right. But in the book of Mark, he essentially tells his disciples that whoever wants to be great among them has to be their servant.
And then he physically demonstrates it.
With the famous foot washing scene in the Gospel of John. And we really need to pause on how shocking that was.
It was scandalous.
If a modern CEO tried to wash their employees' feet at a corporate retreat today, HR would have a field day.
Oh, totally.
It sounds bizarre to our modern ears, but in that ancient culture, washing the grime and manure off guests' feet, That was a task reserved strictly for the absolute lowest-ranking non-Jewish slave in a household.
The bottom of the barrel.
Yet, the recognized leader of the group wraps a towel around his waist and gets on the floor.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, true leaders do not elevate themselves above the people they serve.
They just don't.
Leadership in this framework isn't about being followed just for the sake of accumulating followers.
Or stroking your own ego.
Right. It is entirely about helping others grow. It's a form of sacred stewardship.
You're entrusted with influence.
Exactly. Not for your own benefit, but strictly for the flourishing and the empowerment of those around you.
Which perfectly sets up what might be my absolute favorite part of this entire discussion.
Oh, the Barnabas story.
Yes. Let's talk about the ultimate historical case study in mentorship, the partnership of Barnabas and Paul.
Such a good story.
We really need to emphasize the tension of this dynamic because it is cinematic in its drama.
It really is.
Before he was writing letters that would go on to shape Western civilization, Paul, who was then known as Saul, was a state-sponsored persecutor of the early Christians,
He was an inquisitor.
literally hunting them down.
Yeah.
So when he suddenly claims to have converted, the early church doesn't just view him with mild suspicion.
They are absolutely terrified of him.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, it would be like asking a group of political dissidents to suddenly embrace the head of the secret police who had been hunting them.
The fear was entirely justified.
But this is exactly where Barnabas steps into the narrative. Barnabas, whose name literally translates to son of encouragement,
I love that.
does something incredibly courageous. He acts like an angel investor in a highly radioactive startup.
That's a great way to put it.
He chooses to believe in Paul's calling before anyone else is willing to risk it. He puts his own hard-earned social capital and reputation on the line to advocate for Paul to the apostles in Jerusalem.
He bridged that massive gap of isolation, and he didn't just, give Paul a pat on the back and some good advice from a safe distance.
No, he got involved.
He went to Tarsus, found Paul, and actually brought him back to Antioch to share in the daily ministry with him,
Side by side.
working in the trenches.
They did. And there's this brilliant, subtle linguistic detail in the historical record of the book of Acts regarding their partnership.
The name flip.
Yes. Initially, when they start traveling and working together, the narrative consistently refers to the duo as Barnabas and Saul.
Barnabas first.
Barnabas is the senior figure, the established leader, the mentor. He's the marquee name. But as they move forward and Paul's incredible gifting and leadership begin to emerge and really flourish, the phrasing shifts.
It organically becomes Paul and Barnabas.
Paul and Barnabas.
I love that linguistic aha moment. It's just a simple flip of the names in the text, but the psychology behind it is massive.
It speaks volumes about the profound, secure humility of Barnabas. Think about it. In the secular corporate world, a leader might feel incredibly threatened by their protege suddenly taking the spotlight.
Oh, definitely. Outshining them, getting the better speaking gigs.
But in this kingdom model, a mentor's ultimate success is literally measured by the flourishing of the mentee.
Barnabas willingly, gracefully, intentionally stepped out of the spotlight to let Paul lead.
He didn't cling to his senior status.
He recognized that the goal wasn't to build the Barnabas Global Ministries brand. It was to multiply influence. And that leads us seamlessly into the actual math of mentorship.
Spiritual multiplication.
Yes. There's a fascinating breakdown of 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2, which maps out this remarkable multi-generational leadership strategy.
It really is a mathematical formula for exponential influence. The strategy outlines a 4-generation chain of custody for discipleship.
4 generations.
You have Paul, who mentors Timothy. Timothy is then instructed to take those teachings and entrust them to faithful people.
And then those faithful people.
They'll then be equipped to teach others. That is 4 distinct generations. Paul to Timothy to faithful people to others.
It's the ultimate compound interest.
It really is.
One deep relationship sees a global movement. But what really struck me is the sharp distinction drawn between modern education and ancient biblical discipleship.
Oh, it's a vital distinction. Because modern education is almost exclusively focused on the transfer of information.
Right, you sit in a lecture hall.
You download a syllabus, you memorize facts, you pass a standardized test to get a credential.
But biblical discipleship is fundamentally about entrusting responsibility.
It's life-on-life apprenticeship.
You aren't just teaching a student facts to regurgitate, you're actively creating disciple makers.
You're sharing meals,
Mm.
sharing struggles, molding their character so they can eventually do the exact same thing for someone else down the line.
And it is deeply intergenerational.
Right.
Look at the instructions in the book of Titus, where older men and older women are specifically called to intentionally guide and befriend younger
It
believers.
highlights how much we've lost in our highly segmented modern society.
Completely. This kind of robust faith in leadership was never, ever meant to grow in isolation. It relies on overlapping lives across different age brackets.
Faith without that relational, intergenerational tether becomes incredibly stagnant.
It dies out.
Yeah. The early community was a living, breathing network of mentors and mentees, constantly passing wisdom, lived experience, and accountability down the line.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we aren't just talking about ancient history and high-level sociological concepts.
Right, there's practical application.
There is a deeply practical breakdown of the mechanics. How do you actually do this in your own life?
Yeah.
Let's talk about who to mentor. Because the natural human inclination is to look for the loudest voice in the room,
The charismatic extrovert.
or the person with raw, undeniable talent.
And that is a crucial trap to avoid. Mentors must aggressively resist the urge to look for polished charisma or immediate visibility.
Those are worldly markers of success.
Exactly. Instead, mentors need to look for 4 specific spiritual markers of potential.
Let's go through them.
The first is faithfulness in small things. Think of the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. He was faithful managing a household as an enslaved servant,
And he was faithful managing a prison as an inmate.
decades before he ever managed the economy of Egypt.
Right. If they can't be trusted with the small, invisible, unglamorous tasks, handing them massive responsibility is actually a recipe for their own destruction.
Absolutely, and that flows right into the second marker, a teachable spirit.
Which honestly made me laugh because Peter is used as the prime example here.
Oh, poor Peter.
Peter is basically the patron saint of putting his foot in his mouth. He is constantly messing up.
Right. He's incredibly impulsive. He speaks out of turn. He overpromises and underdelivers.
But the genius of Jesus' mentorship is that he didn't look for a polished PR guy who never made a mistake.
He looked for someone who, after making a massive, humiliating mistake, was willing to be corrected, restored, and instructed.
That teachability is huge.
It is. Third is a spiritual hunger, a deep longing to learn and be present. The example given is Mary of Bethany, who prioritized sitting and listening to teaching over the frantic, anxious, busy work of managing a household.
She prioritized presence over productivity.
Beautifully said. And the fourth marker is a servant's heart. Think of Dorcas or Tabitha in the early church, who was known for quietly making garments and serving the widows in her community.
Her leadership authority was born out of genuine, tangible care for others, not out of naked ambition.
So you have faithfulness, teachability, hunger, and a servant's heart. Those are your green lights for identifying a potential mentee.
Okay, so once you identify someone with those specific traits, you move into the actual mentoring process, which happens in 4 distinct organic phases.
Phase 1 is simply the invitation.
Right.
It's not drafting a formal corporate contract
Mm-hmm.
or asking them to fill out an application. It's a simple relational call to journey together.
Come and see.
Just like Jesus walking by the Sea of Galilee and casually calling Peter and Andrew away from their fishing nets.
Once you've made that invitation, you move right into the second phase, formation. And let's be honest, this is the messy part.
Very messy.
You aren't just handing your mentee a reading list and saying, hey, good luck, let's chat in a month. This is where character is shaped through shared life.
You're letting them watch how you handle conflict.
How you manage stress, how you apologize when you're wrong, and how you pray. Character is caught just as much as it is taught.
It's the heavy lifting of vulnerability. Then comes phase 3, empowerment.
Entrusting them with responsibility.
Real, meaningful responsibility.
Yeah.
You can't let them just shadow you forever. Think about how Jesus sent his disciples out 2 by 2. They had to go heal the sick and preach without him physically standing right there.
You have to let your mentee get their hands dirty.
Make actual decisions and inevitably make mistakes while you're still close enough to debrief and guide them through the failure.
Which leads directly to the 4th and final phase, release. And I think this is arguably the most terrifying yet most essential act of mentoring.
It's the Barnabas step.
It's the empty nest syndrome of leadership. It's
Yeah.
letting go and sending them out to lead completely independently. Your job is done.
You step back so they can step fully into their own calling.
It's incredibly beautiful, but to get a mentee to that point requires a massive amount of intentionality.
A lot of work.
Which brings us to the actual tools of formation used during this process. Because as you pointed out earlier, mentorship is not just a casual coffee chat once a month where you complain about your week.
No, it requires intentional spiritual growth goals.
Right, if you don't have a destination in mind, you're just hanging out. So there are specific disciplines used to form a leader's character. The first one discussed is scripture engagement.
But it's framed not as passively reading a chapter to check a box. It emphasizes deep memorization and reflective journaling, internalizing the text so deeply that it actually becomes the instinctive lens through which you make leadership decisions.
And alongside that is worship and prayer. The developmental goal here is a specific transition.
You're moving the mentee from just having a private internal communion with God to eventually finding their voice and being able to confidently lead corporate prayer.
You're moving them from the internal to the external.
Exactly. But I have to tell you, the breakdown on fasting in this framework absolutely blew my mind.
It's so detailed.
We usually just think of fasting as a blunt instrument, just giving up food for a while. But it's split into 3 razor-sharp, distinct tools for character formation.
Yes, the granularity on this is amazing. Walk us through those 3 types.
First, there's short-term fasting. This is primarily for cultivating personal discipline. It's a visceral, physical way to realize your profound dependence on God, rather than relying on your own strength and competence. It breaks your self-reliance.
It's like a hard spiritual reset for your ego.
Exactly. Then you have intercessory fasting. This is where you combine abstaining from food with intensely focused prayer for the specific needs of others.
It builds empathy.
So much empathy. The physical discomfort you feel actually cultivates a deep bodily empathy for the struggles of the people you are praying for. Your physical hunger aligns your heart with their spiritual or physical desperation. It kills apathy.
Wow.
And finally, there's reflective fasting. This is where the physical denial is actively coupled with journaling and discussion with your mentor to translate the experience into actionable leadership wisdom.
It's not just about going hungry to prove a point.
No, it's about intentionally clearing the physical and mental clutter to create quiet space for extreme clarity and discernment.
I love that. It shows that these disciplines are highly active tools for transformation, not just passive religious rituals. And that flows right into the concept of mentoring through ministry.
Because faith without action is entirely theoretical.
A mentor absolutely must give mentees real-world practice.
You have to get the reps in. The laboratory of leadership is actual boots-on-the-ground service. A mentor needs to let the mentee lead a prayer session, teach a portion of a small group, coordinate a community outreach event.
Or manage a difficult interpersonal conflict.
Yes.
So what does this all mean? When we take the upside-down kingdom model, the Barnabas principle of stepping back, the math of multi-generational multiplication, the 4 phases from invitation to release, and all these highly specific tools, how does it all synthesize into a single relationship?
It all synthesizes into the relational foundation of mentorship. It really boils down to 3 core pillars: trust, accountability, and spiritual friendship.
Trust being the foundation.
Trust is the necessary scaffolding. Without deep trust, your guidance just feels like nagging or micromanagement to the mentee.
Nobody wants that.
Right. And accountability is the engine that ensures character and competence actually grow over time. And spiritual friendship is the glue that holds it all together.
You aren't a CEO managing a subordinate.
You're 2 people walking alongside each other in a shared, joyful mission. That friendship makes the incredibly hard work of transformation sustainable.
It really takes the pressure off. You don't need to be a flawless, fully actualized guru to be a leader. You just need to be a faithful friend who happens to be a few steps ahead on the path, willing to reach a hand back.
Precisely. And for you listening right now, there's a very direct application here. You do not need a platform to start doing this today.
Not at all.
You don't need a microphone, you don't need a massive social media following, and you certainly don't need a shiny title. You simply need to look around your current community, your workplace, your local church, or your neighborhood, and ask yourself a simple question.
Who might God be inviting me to mentor right now?
Exactly. Look for those quiet markers.
Yeah.
Someone who is faithful in the invisible things, someone with a teachable spirit, someone hungry to grow.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that builds on everything we've talked about today.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this whole time discussing how to find a mentee, how to train them, and how to release them. But here is a dynamic we rarely talk about. Think about the ripple effect of history. You know the name of Paul, who wrote half the New Testament, but his entire legacy was unlocked by Barnabas, a guy who was simply willing to walk alongside him when no one else would.
Yeah.
What if the greatest, most lasting impact you ever make in this world isn't something you achieve directly, but a completely unknown leader you quietly believe in and mentor today?
That is the beautiful, complex reality of true multiplication.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel equipped and encouraged to take that first quiet step of servant leadership this week. Go find someone to encourage and start building that legacy. We'll see you next time.